All right, we're live. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Victory Condition Gaming. My name is Doug. Today on the show, I'm so excited. I have someone that I just met that is just, he's an awesome game designer, and he's got a project on Kickstarter right now for IDW Games. He designed Imperial Assault, Battlelore, Doom, just a whole bunch of stuff for Fantasy Flight Games, and now he's kind of doing his own thing and working with IDW Games, making Splat Attack. It's Jonathan Ying. Jonathan, thanks for coming on.
Hi, yeah, great to be here, man.
Oh, I'm excited to chat with you and have you on. You just have made so much stuff that I love that it's just a treat to have you on the show and chat with you for a little while.
That's really validating emotionally. Thank you.
Oh, no, hey, it's just we play these games on our tables and we kind of sometimes we forget that there's people that put a lot of hard work into making these games that we love. So whenever I get to chat with someone that is the mastermind behind this creation that I put on my table, it's just an exciting thing.
Oh well, I'm glad to be here.
Jonathan,
it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I'm excited. Let's chat. Yeah. Now you have a project on Kickstarter right now for IDW Games. It's called Splat Attack. It's a miniatures board game. It's like a food fight game, and we're going to talk all about it. I'm going to start off this session by just saying, if any of this is interesting to folks, the link to the Kickstarter is in the description of this video. So please click on it and check it out. And we're going to talk a little bit about it later on in this session. So Jonathan, why don't you introduce yourself and just give us a little brief bio about Jonathan Ying for a little while.
Sure. So I grew up in Los Angeles, sunny California, and I went to college in New York. I studied liberal arts, which basically means I am best qualified to be drunk and homeless, as we joke a lot. But yeah, it sort of had a pretty broad education. I studied animation initially. I'd initially planned on going into animation and storyboarding, which is my sister is a visual development artist, and she did a lot of work for Disney feature animation. So that was kind of where I was initially aiming to go. And I sort of ended up falling backwards into game design. There was a brief sort of recession in the animation industry around early 2013 or so, and basically DreamWorks had let go of a huge number of people and no one was really hiring, so I just kind of got I indulged a bit more in my own hobbies like board games.
Sure.
And I got it into my head to maybe try my hand at doing some design work. I made a bunch of really awful games in my first couple months. But I started getting the hang of getting the ideas, and when r/board games, the board game subreddit, they posted up that Fantasy Flight Games was hiring. I saw that job opening, and I was like, this job opening does not require 7 to 93 years of experience.
Which you would think with a Fantasy Flight game, Fantasy Flight Games, you kind of need that, you would think.
You would think, actually, and when I applied, I was like, oh, this seems pretty good. And it was like sort of a, associate designer position, very, entry-level stuff. But they were explaining that they don't need people who think they know how to design games necessarily. They don't want, it's like every company has their own business. And very few companies are like Fantasy Flight and have, a structure or a system that would carry over in any way to working at FFG. So what they were really looking for was someone who could work well in a group, had pretty decent ideas, was just socially capable and willing to work with people and develop new IPs. And a big part of that, honestly, though, their vetting process was a really excellent written exam kind of element to their application, where you had to submit. It was almost like applying to college. It had multiple sections. My favorite part was that you had to write the rules to rock, paper, scissors for someone who had never experienced it before.
Wow.
And that really tells you a lot about how someone thinks, because you see and sort of sees whether they have a good mind for technical writing and whether will they cover all their bases. Do they, say what happens when there's a draw? How do you describe this? I'm doing the scissors motion with my hand for those of you who can't see, but it's, how do you write that down in a rulebook format? And getting that done makes it very clear if someone has the baseline writing understanding that they were looking for. And after that, it was just sort of some personal questions about like designs that you like, designs that you think are innovative. If there's any design that you made that you were particularly proud of, that sort of thing. Like it was a really lovely little application process that, and they liked it enough that they flew me out for the interview just to make sure I didn't have two heads. And then I got hired. Normally at FFG, they would expect someone. They normally put you on a development project. There are two basic systems. There's design and development. Design is creating the core system. Development is building stuff out of that system, right?
Okay, sure.
And so normally when they hire a new designer, they put you on a development project, make an expansion for this game, just so that you can see what the process is, how your, what the order of operations is as we create a budget, we establish the mechanics, we commission art, everything. You kind of go through that for a smaller project that you are more tied to. That's what they normally do. Unfortunately, when I came on, they were a bit short-handed, and they needed someone to do a lot of rapid content development for an upcoming game called Star Wars Imperial Assault.
Just a small game.
Yeah, just this little side project, right? Like low commitment. They were like, so do you know or like Star Wars? And I was like, I'll have you know. I was very excited to do that, and it was super cool to work with them on that project. And there were a bunch of design issues within that they were working out. And both of the other people on the project, Justin Kampainen and Corey Thunitska, both very, very good designers.
Absolutely.
They both had other responsibilities at the time because they were both fairly senior at FFG. So I was the only one working full-time on Imperial Assault, which meant that by the end of the, when they were like sort of deciding who got cover credits and stuff, I had contributed enough to the core design to solving problems and stuff that they let me get a cover credit, which really jump-started my career, honestly.
Yeah, so, sure.
By the grace of Corey and Justin.
Wow, that's awesome.
And they were fantastic mentors for me the whole time. I did a bunch more stuff with FFG, and then a couple years back, I left to basically get away from the cold. And,
I hear you. I can totally relate to that.
Yeah, and then I sort of pursued my newfound indie/freelance career, which has been pretty cool overall.
That's awesome. Now you just you had a Kickstarter last year for Bargain Quest, and it was a huge success. And you've already delivered on that, and I think I heard that it's sold out. Right? You don't have any more copies of that, right?
Yeah. So I mean, it was it was a modest success on Kickstarter. It did fairly well. Got like a solid early print run, and we've been sort of taking it to conventions. Response has been tremendous, and we've been really thrilled with it. And then the Shut Up and Sit Down guys got a hold of it, and they posted a review of it that was incredibly lovely. And immediately afterwards, we just completely sold out of all of our stock. And we were like, oh God, panicked. But like, good problems to have, but it was very exciting for that. And so, yeah, right now we're working on getting together. We're talking to the factory about, how quickly can we get a reprint done.
Sure.
We've been cooking a expansion Kickstarter for a while, and we're gonna try and roll up our timeline on that one because yeah, like we sort of we're gonna make the time now that we suddenly have this good influx of capital. We can really get the ball rolling on one of those projects.
Absolutely. Now is your Kickstarter going to be like because I've seen a lot of Kickstarters recently, they do like a reprint plus an expansion Kickstarter. Is that?
Yeah, pretty much. That would be the idea. Anyone who just wants the base game can just get the base game, but also we're going to use it to fund the printing of a nice big expansion as well. Sort of, we had one expansion already that was just kind of a nice little card pack that expands the game a bit, but we want to make something a little meatier this time, something a little with a little more heft.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Very cool. Let's I will add, if anybody that's viewing would like to ask any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll address them as we can fit them in, or even at the end of the session if we can't fit them in, we'll get everybody's questions answered as we go. Now you're doing Splat Attack for IDW Games. This is a pretty cool project. Like it encompasses a pretty awesome, quite a few different IPs.
I could not be more excited about Splat Attack, honestly. Yeah, like it was when IDW first approached me about the project, I was like, no way, that is way too cool. they had like sort of mentioned, way back when I first started talking to them, they were working with Nickelodeon, they had gotten some properties, and they were looking to see if they could make something to put everything together. And they're like, let us know if you think of anything for that. I'm like, how could you even do that? I had no idea. I was like, wow, man, they're all so different. Like, how do you have Rugrats and Hey Arnold even interact? And then finally, like, they came back to me a while later and be like, so we've got like a core sort of concept for it, but we don't really have the mechanics down, but we'd like to make it a food fight game.
Nice.
And so I was like, oh my God, that is perfect. That is, like barring a kart racer, right? That is
that's true.
Like it allows you to make like an arena combat game that's still like family friendly and, won't, because it's like, oh God, you've just pit the Rugrats against, a bunch of 9-year-olds of the Hey Arnold team and also the Ninja Turtles, which is, 1-year-old baby versus a teenage mutant fighting machine. What could go wrong? No, but like by caching the whole thing in sort of this nice big food fight concept, it was a really brilliant stroke for them. And I was like, oh man, hey, that actually works really well with a concept that I had been cooking for a long time.
Oh, really?
I'd actually been spending a long time, like I'd had this idea because I've been looking at, I've done a lot of miniatures combat games, right? Imperial Assault,
right. That's kind of damn.
I love combat systems. And there was a really interesting video by a guy named Mark Brown. He does a series called Game Maker's Toolkit on YouTube, which talked about how video games do health systems. And, all these games have all these very different ways of approaching health. And I realized, wow, board games also have basically just the one way of approaching health generally. And it's you take some damage. Once you've taken a certain amount of damage, you're done. That's it.
Right.
And I was wondering, is there some way to like kind of mix that up? Is there some way to make that a little more interesting? And like tabletop RPGs have been doing some cool stuff with like, the fate system has different conditions you gain and like the stress tracker and all that. I liked kind of this interesting puzzly element of how much damage you want to take from that. But eventually I came to this idea after playing a lot of Uwe Rosenberg games of this Tetris mechanic, basically, where what if every character had a grid that was their health and they take damage basically in Tetris blocks. And so when you got hit, instead of just losing health, you had to place this block somewhere and make it so that you can create, so that you don't, and if you can't fit the block, you get popped, you die, or get splat. Totally family friendly. No one dies in Splat Attack.
We're not going to kill
originally, it was like going to be kind of this ridiculous like supermarket sweep, but in like a black market arms place with a bunch of cartoon bombs and stuff. That was kind of the original like kart racing pitch for this system. But I realized it would actually work really well. When they told me the food fight thing, I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. You would have, food covering up your characters. You would get smacked by different stuff. And if your character gets too messy, you're out. It was really wonderful. And the really big thing that I love about the Nicktoons in particular that makes this game such a good game for Nicktoons is that these cartoon characters have these very distinctive silhouettes.
Oh, they do. Yes, absolutely.
And, getting to use the very unique shapes of all of these characters as part of the design. So, like, every grid is shaped like the character. SpongeBob, of course, has the safest grid, being a square.
Square, sure.
But, like, Gerald has, like, his tall hair, and, like, Squidward's a bit more long and skinny. And so that makes placing pieces on them a different puzzle than if everyone was just a normal grid. And that was super exciting to me. And that was kind of the core big idea that the rest of the game sort of ballooned out of.
I love that.
And God, I'm really excited with how the whole thing has shaken out, just because we've put a lot of dev work into this, and there were a lot of not so good tests for early on. Like,
oh really?
Yeah, some of the earlier prototypes were pretty rough. Just like different ways of implementing this system and different sort of like you want a game like this to be nice and quick and to not have like a lot of fiddly busy work. So we wanted to make sure to slim down your play space, so you don't have to be like manipulating a dozen tokens at once, or like having to decide. There was a point where like everyone kind of had one set of Tetris blocks, and when they would throw, they would actually choose the type they would throw at their opponent. But then you did have this crazy thing of like you're looking at their grid, you're like, okay, what won't fit there? I'm going to send them. It was
that'd be too.
It wasn't great. And yeah, like we were sort of working out a lot of things. We wanted to emphasize the characters mixing together and like how that's really interesting. So while we originally had every team have their own food, so like only SpongeBob's team used Krabby Patties, for example.
Okay. Yep.
We basically realized like, well, you're already controlling SpongeBob. You don't, part of the fun is that all these different foods are present. So like, isn't it more exciting to have like, hey Arnold, throw a Krabby Patty, and like, Tommy, have some weird, disgusting Zim food. Like that's kind of part of the charm of like games like Smash Bros. So yeah, we readjusted and basically made this new food card system where you would pick your team and that team would bring with it a small contribution to the deck of food that everyone shares.
Very neat.
And yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of getting into the mechanical weeds of this thing. But,
yeah, no. When I was telling folks that you were coming on, I was kind of bragging that you were coming on because of, you're so well known in the industry, and I was saying, they'd say, oh, Splat Attack, what is that about? I said, well, if you ever think of like, if you ever played Smash Brothers, it's kind of like Smash Brothers, only you're playing it with Nicktoons on a board game. And that's how I kind of like, that's how I explain it to folks, when I was telling them that you were coming on and what you were designing and what you had coming out. And I love the concept, and it's just, you've got miniatures with different stats, and then there's dice rolling. It's just everything that kind of hits like so many different, buttons with me that I just, I'm like, yes, like this is, I can just see myself sitting down and playing this with my daughter and having a blast with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Smash Bros. Comparison is really a big touchstone for the whole game the whole time. Like we love, we all love Nintendo over on the dev team.
Sure.
And it was sort of a big, a lot of our decisions were like, okay, kind of how would Nintendo approach this? Because when you look at how Nintendo does their games, they'll take a lot of very heavy, serious genres like fighting games or racing games or sports games, all these kind of very intense games, and then make them into something that is super approachable and super charming, but does not lose that much depth. Like Smash Brothers has a very vibrant competitive scene. Mario Kart is super intense. Like Splatoon is like, I think it was the best shooter of like 2016 or whenever Splatoon came out. Like it's so interesting what they do with these genres. And I was like, I want to kind of do this for like a board game genre, for like an arena combat game, and make something new and interesting and deep, but still charming and fun and approachable.
Absolutely.
And that was sort of what we're aiming at. I hope we did pretty well.
I think you did, and I love the fact that you approached it this way, because like there's so many kids game, like there's like you could see this license going just the total opposite mass market, like, and nothing against mass market, but there's a reason they sell and everything, but like
some of my best friends are mass market games, I'll have you know.
Yeah, I know. But like, we've all sat down and played mass market games with our kids, and it's just like, okay, the kids really like it, but the adults are just kind of like, okay, how many more turns do we got to get through before we spin this little spinner and finish this game. This isn't like that. This is like an actual game that we can play with our kids and enjoy, and they can play it and get it, and we can get it, and it's just going to be a blast. So
yeah, I think I'm proud of it.
No, I'm so, like, when I first saw it was announced, I was so excited for it. Let's see here. We do have a comment here. Rav Bane says Patrick should just eat everyone's food. That's what they say.
Yeah, let's see. I think Patrick's thing is that he's kind of unstoppable. He just sort of plows through people. It was actually a bit tricky because characters like Patrick or like Heifer for Rocko's Modern Life, a lot of them fill a very similar narrative niche.
Oh, okay, sure.
So it's like, oh God, like, I mean, every show kind of has like, say, the scared nerd guy, or like the, funny fat character. Like, so making sure that like Filbert and Chucky didn't toe step mechanically too much was kind of important. And like similarly, I think Heifer's thing is that he like can eat food off of other people. Patrick's thing really is just that his grid is bigger than most characters because he's a bigger guy, more surface area.
Right.
And he's just very good at just plowing through things and just knocking characters up aside. Very few other characters can. A lot of the SpongeBob characters are about positioning, and Patrick is very good at basically shoving characters around, like either pushing SpongeBob into position or like knocking a character closer to Sandy so she can use her karate.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, oh god, the game has way too many really weird references. We made sure to try and avoid too many deep cuts, but I had an incredibly good time filling the game with little jokes.
Was the game design research just you sitting in front of a TV and watching Nicktoons for hours? Is that pretty much? That's how I envision.
I can neither confirm nor deny the number of hours I've spent watching old Nicktoons. Like it was a whole lot of research. Luckily, I mean, there's like hundreds of episodes of SpongeBob at this point. Didn't go through all of them, but we do have wonderful wiki resources of incredibly dedicated fans. Much like Wikipedia, but there is like a page of every single food item that has ever appeared in SpongeBob. There's like a wiki page for that.
Oh my
and it's
word.
like literally everything from just like pickles to like the Rusty on Rye, which is like in one episode and is like a piece of wood with like lacquer and a nail in it that is served as like in a single episode. And like it was very easy to kind of go through there and try and find, okay, what does SpongeBob need? And SpongeBob in particular was pretty easy, right? Krabby Patties, jellyfish jelly, right? Yeah. But yeah, it was super interesting, and like that was sort of something I was really finding more and more is that Nicktoons are very united by food. Food is a very easy and common gag, but it's like something that just every character in every Nicktoon has some relationship with food in some particular way, right? Like there's always like some snack food that they really love, or some like, some things, just there are things that they are eating constantly. Like, the Jolly Ollie Man's ice cream and Hey Arnold, or like all the weird spicy snack foods in Angry Beavers. I think it's just because food is funny. But yeah, it's been a trip getting to go through and populate these cards with like, and also commission art for all of these weird specific food items that show up in the shows.
I bet.
Breakfast squid. Anyway.
So we've talked a little bit about some of the teams that are in this game. The base game itself comes with, is it four teams?
So the basic game that would be going to retail is 4 teams. It is SpongeBob's Crew, Hey Arnold, Rugrats, and Invader Sim. Okay. Kickstarter, out of the gate, everyone got the Ninja Turtles for backing Kickstarter, which I'm super excited about. And from there, we've been doing add-on teams, which again, everyone who backs the Kickstarter gets all the teams, which is bananas. And we've got Rocko's Modern Life, we've got Cat Dog, Real Monsters, which I was super excited about. Angry Beavers, Ren and Stimpy, Wild Thornberries.
Is there like, any other ones that haven't been announced?
I'm like going through. Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, let's see. What's all the ones that we've definitely announced? Let's see. I'm not sure IDW would appreciate if I announced anything that we haven't. There are some characters that I really wanted to get that we just weren't quite able to fit in.
Sure.
But like, or that say due to the current state of licensing, etc., or what have you. Yeah, essentially, like the better this game does, the more characters we can come out with. I've got a whole bunch of mechanics designed with kind of like theoretical ideas of, okay, if we can get this in the game, who would get this ability, etc. And yeah, I think I have just like the game is really has a lot of good levers for making cool mechanics because it's nice and simple, but there's like just enough crunch that I can give each character a unique twist. Nice. And it's been really fun. Plus, also balancing the teams has been an interesting experiment, given that we have to make them good in their native teams, but because we have customization, like you can have your own custom squad of like, hey, I want Chucky and Squidward and Donatello to team up. Like
that sounds like
if that's your dream team, you can go for that. And that, like, having to make sure the abilities will work well together in those models is also important. So far, just making sure that there are synergies, but not like, because you want them to interact, right? You want synergies, but you don't want anything overpowered. You don't want anything broken. And particularly, you don't want anything that would be super duper confusing.
Sure.
Because that'll just stop the game cold and have someone looking for the rule book, and it's not.
That's not what you want.
So I'm trying to make sure that every character has a very distinctive role, that you know kind of what they're doing and why they, why you might want or not want them on your squad. And that way you can be at least a little bit informed when you're making those calls.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now with all these teams, the player count for this game is 2, and it goes all the way up to 8 if you back the expansion as well. So like that's a lot of stuff on a board. Is that?
It sure is.
That's pretty crazy.
So basically, luckily, as we go past 4, the board gets bigger. The 5 to 8 player expansion adds more map tiles to make the map a larger space, which is helpful. It allows the characters to do kind of some more interesting stuff it basically allows the characters not to immediately just slam into each other and explode the way that like trying to fit 8 players on like 6x6 grid would normally.
Right.
And the map is intentionally pretty cramped because we want players to dive right into the action. But basically at every player count we do some slight rules modifications, particularly once we hit about 6, 7, and 8. You don't play with your full team on the board at once.
Oh, interesting.
Normally, so in the normal game, you have all 4 characters available, and you just you activate 2 at a time. And so you'll activate, say, Arnold and Helga, then you'll activate Gerald and Phoebe, and the next round, they all reset, and you activate a different pair.
Oh, okay, sure.
And that worked well for the 4-player game. But once you hit like a whole bunch of players, that means that you go through several like long stretches, like all the way around the table before your other characters get to go.
Yep.
And so if you put someone in a vulnerable position, that basically means you get 2 full cycles before they get smashed. And so they'll inevitably get crushed without being able to respond.
Right.
Which was an issue before when we had every character activating just once per round, and that also led to the rest of the team just kind of being sitting ducks. So in the higher player counts, you actually have 2 characters out at any given time, and you activate both of them. And once one of them gets splat, they get immediately replaced by someone fresh, and you kind of keep that. It's basically like almost, it's, again, going back to Smash, it's kind of like having stock in Smash.
Right,
you have kind of, you have backup, you have reinforcements.
Yeah.
But you essentially just play with the 2-character squad you kick off with, which does mean that in those larger games, you want to make sure that you build squads that are good for being doubled, for being a team of 2, because there's different team building procedures depending on the number of characters that you want to have clustered together or spread apart.
Nice.
But yeah, I think that system, we've done a couple of tests with it so far that have gone super duper well. We're still hammering away on we really want to make this game as tight and balanced as possible, really.
Sure.
And the different player counts, sometimes it's a little tough to get hey, literally everyone in the IDW, in this part of the department, can we have all of you take a moment, step away from your work and help us out testing this? Or we'll take it to game shops, we'll take it around, and response so far has been really positive from players.
That's terrific.
Yes,
especially
it's
once
good.
you get all these different figures in, and have multiples of combinations. It's hard to kind of pinpoint anything that might not work.
It gets pretty intense.
Yeah.
I think luckily one of the nice things about the game is because it's a free-for-all.
Right.
You get this automatic balancing mechanism of having other players involved, right?
Sure.
In any of these games, it's okay, that player is doing really well, get him.
Right.
And the game is built that pursuing that strategy, sort of trying to spike the leader, isn't something that is necessarily detrimental to you, because a lot of games it's okay, I can either target the player in the lead, or I can try and actually win right on my own, because and all that. And I think the game is pretty healthy about that, and sort of the way the point scoring works of as you hit characters, you'll take cool points from them, which is this sort of secret scoring And the way that's built out is that if a character gets ganged up on, they'll basically have all of their points taken, at which point they're not a target anymore, and they're free to kind of go nuts and be really aggressive.
Okay.
And yeah, so long as all the players are keeping track of who seems to be doing well, and making decisions based on that, or at least, you know, or even making the decision to ignore that and then, you know, target other players. So long as that's a decision and not just sort of the game snowballing out of control, I think, you know, we're in a good space. So it is that social balancing and that social gameplay is something that I really just love in any kind of free-for-all game. Where you have those very temporary alliances, and it's like, listen, you know, I'm gonna go for him, you know, who just hit you, like, so don't worry about it. And hey, we're buddies now, right? Like, and then immediately betraying because of course,
absolutely,
we've all played Game of Thrones.
Now, so we have this like arena type mode where you're battling each other, but there's also an expansion with this Kickstarter for the Reptar expansion, which is like an AI type of element, right? Is that what I was getting when I looked at that?
He's really basically an enormous semi-controllable hazard in the game.
Okay.
Effectively, the way it works is that you basically slam Reptar down into the board, and now he has his own little grid, and he has a bunch of points just sort of loaded onto him. Any player can hit Reptar, at which point Reptar will sort of stomp somewhere, and another player will get to move Reptar. So like if you hit Reptar, then the player next to you will then get to move Reptar one space, and then Reptar will do a thing. Oftentimes, like, that means he's like stomping on a character, which means like they take a bit of splatter and he steals one of their cool points, and he sort of slowly stomps around eating up characters' points until finally, like, if someone can get the finishing blow on him and fill up his grid, then he kind of explodes, or not explodes, he actually rampages.
Okay.
Where that player gets Reptar to like stomp around, like go really far suddenly and just eat another character and take all their points. By which I mean, you know, knock the character out of the game in a completely family-friendly manner. And it's sort of this simultaneous like balancing mechanism / point pinata that everyone's playing with. So it doesn't actually change much of the fundamentals of the game. Like, the core mechanics are still the same. If you know how to play Splat Attack, you can play with Reptar. But if you have Reptar in there, it's just sort of this new tool in every player's tool belt of, do they want to manipulate Reptar? Do they want to use him to get in their opponent's way? Do they, you know, you can even use him as cover, but it could be dangerous because he might step on you. There's a whole lot of fun stuff you can do with Reptar, and he just sort of adds a little more mayhem to an already like crazy, wacky, chaotic game.
No, I love it. I love just different modes of play. Well, it's almost not quite a mode, you know, but it's just adding a different element of play, and so there's a lot of replay value with this game.
It's its own game mode, but it feels kind of like you know, in games when they sort of put in like the smash ball or a weird terrain element to like a fighting game, or a you know, or a particularly wacky map in a kart racer, right? The game doesn't have much terrain elements really to speak of. We kind of wanted to keep that to a minimum because those tend to be a little more bitty and hard to remember, especially on a flat board for players who are playing more casually. And he sort of acts as this very big, noticeable terrain element that isn't something that's just sort of a minor thing, but is instead substantially changing to the pace and flow of the game.
Nice.
Yeah.
Let's. So if anybody's interested in Splat Attack, I'm going to tell you that they've got their basic pledge, which is $70. It comes with the core game, the Reptar expansion, and all the stretch goals, and the Ninja Turtle team, which
and
is
the
awesome.
Ninja Turtle food.
That's the only time. That's the only place you can get the Ninja Turtle team. So you definitely, if you're a big Ninja Turtle fan like I am, you definitely want to jump on the Kickstarter.
I couldn't tell what it. You know.
Oh yeah, no, I don't know. You know, it's not like this channel's had any kind of Ninja Turtle content on it at all previously. Let's see here. There is a 5 to 6 or 5 to 8 player expansion pledge, which is $95. and that gives you the additional player boards and everything, and it also gives you some
player boards.
What's that?
It gives you the expanded map board. It also gives you the components for more players, because each player will requires to have their own small set of tokens and things that they can use. Basically more colored chits, but it also gives you these really lovely little velvet bags.
Yeah, they're awesome
in the game, which are sort of nice. I mean, I don't know if they're honestly that much more durable than the bags that come with the game, but they certainly feel very nice. They have this very nice. Actually, I don't know if they're velvet or if they're like some kind of linen or something. I don't know. I don't know what texture their IDW is going with, but they're really nice and kind of help out with making the game a little more deluxe, right?
Right. We always like to kind of like upgrade our games anyway that we love, especially something that we love like an IP like Nicktoons. I love the fact that you guys have a retailer pledge. That's awesome. So if there's any retailers watching this, which I know that there are a few, check out the retailer pledge, because that's awesome. Looks like you can get six copies for $210. That's great.
I'm a liberal arts major, so I'm bad at math, but I am told that's a really good deal.
I'm trying to do the math in my head. It's what, $35 a piece? Is that right? About right?
Yeah, that sounds like wholesale.
Yeah. So that's that gives them a good margin on this game.
I think so.
So yeah, no, I'm excited to see where this project ends up once it's all said and done. You have 9 more days left on this campaign as of today.
Coming into that last week, which is sort of, we'll see how much we can really get away with, because there's a lot of teams and characters that I'm really excited that I hope we get in the game. Because well, oh man.
Anything that gets, like I said, anything where it unlocks more characters into a game and gives you that much more replayability, like that is something that people should want to pledge for, because it's awesome.
Yeah.
It just makes your game even that much better. So Jonathan, let's talk about where you are going to be this year. Now that you've got your Splat Attack, project that's almost kind of, we're not gonna say it's winding down, but you get you've got winding up in like 9 days, and then you're gonna be doing some development with that. But you've probably got a lot going on this year. What else you got going on?
Well, like as I said, we're cooking the Kickstarter for Bargain Quest.
Right.
I got a couple other projects coming down the pipe. I'm not sure if any of them are necessarily fully announced yet, so I won't.
Yeah, no.
I won't spoil. But yeah, I've got a lot coming out. I'm gonna be at Gen Con this year, just hanging out, seeing people. I think I'm gonna be on a Geek and Sundry panel, which will be very fun.
Wow, that's really cool.
I'm also,
we love that.
Tim Fowers is doing his Tabletop Network kind of designer retreat convention thing. He's kind of trying to make like a GDC for tabletop designers.
Okay.
So that's happening like next week, and I'm going to be doing a talk there about making licensed games and talking about what that process is like, and general like best practices and things to avoid while designing games with a well-known IP. And so yeah, that's happening. Let's see. I'm scheduled to go to Origins, but I actually might not be able to make it due to some other work that is piling up that I may need to prioritize. But overall, like, yeah, I think things are going to be pretty busy. We've submitted for a booth at PAX Unplugged, which is where we had launched Bargain Quest originally.
Nice. Okay.
And yeah, we're hoping to like, fingers crossed, by then we will have copies in hand to sell to people. Like, I think it'll be a nice time.
Very cool. Very cool. That's actually the one convention that I was able to get off from work. So we'll have to catch up at PAX Unplugged.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
My one question for you, since you brought up licensed games, and we're gonna go back to the whole Imperial Assault thing, if you don't mind. I'm a big Star Wars geek, and in addition to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and I want you to. I'm gonna put this out right now, and anybody that can make this happen, please do. I want you to make a Transformers miniatures board game, like That would be awesome.
How cool would that be?
Like that is something, and not this Michael Bay garbage that's all the rage right now. I'm talking like old school Transformers. That's what I want. That's what I want, and I want you to design it because that would be just the.
That would be a treat. That would be a real treat.
I want to. Whoever can make that happen needs to make that happen, and
you really want to have those miniatures actually be able to transform though, and that would be.
Yes,
a lot of work for the toolway people, but hey, I mean, well, I don't know. Sculptors can do a lot of crazy stuff these days.
There are little tiny transformers that you can. I'm telling you right now, it is doable. It is doable.
It is a thing, yeah.
Just come to me and I'll consult. I'll consult with you on at least the product in the.
Yeah, I am kind of surprised there haven't been more like Transformers tabletop games because like it seems like an IP with that. A lot of people have a huge affection for. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised. Yeah.
So Ninja Turtles, Transformers, but Star Wars. Those are kind of like those are the things that I grew up with. Those because I'm an '80s kid and I love that stuff.
Your heart, yeah.
Yeah, I love that stuff, man. That's my jam. What was it like working with a Star Wars IP? Like that's gonna be like totally like I know how George was with like when they were putting books out like back in the 80s and 90s and how like he was like just hammering them to make sure every single detail was like in line with everything else that's been put out. Like what was that like?
I mean, like, so it was of course an enormous honor to get to, create characters in the Star Wars universe and to build stuff out. I mean, we actually got we had the license before Disney got it, right? Like
right.
FFG had, and that was kind of they'd gotten it from LFL and they're like, all right, yeah, so this is gonna be Star Wars. This is it, right? Like we have the original trilogy, we have the prequels which no one talks about, and it's like this will like we'll have a good time. We're really excited. And then the Disney merger happened, and then they announced episode 7, and like things just went nuts.
Sure.
I mean, even beforehand though, LFL Lucasfilm Limited is very careful about their IP, and they're very, and of course, we're very. As fans, we're very respectful to their wishes for the IP. And we submit requests for like, hey, is it okay if this character is in? Every art piece has to be cleared by them. They have a very specific style guide for how Star Wars is. Like you don't never use the word earthquake because there is no earth. There are no bathrooms. They're all refreshers. You don't show any products made of paper.
Right.
Yep, which has apparently changed as of
in the last movie. They showed books.
They showed books for the first time in Star Wars, and I mean they've referenced books in other things, but it's like sort of broadly speaking, classic Star Wars didn't really show anything made of paper. That was just not part of their aesthetic. No shoelaces was a big one.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it's a subtle one. But yeah, like so you'd see when we had a character in combat boots. And as like part of their character design, and then LFO was like, yeah, change those to straps because there are no shoelaces in Star Wars. And we did note plenty of characters wear like cords and like other like stringed objects to their outfits. So I think it's aglets that they don't like.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, anyway, so yeah, no shoelaces. That was a whole thing. And yeah, like it's just they have very specific things they're very careful about. I think we made the last Bothan ever in Imperial Assault because I think Disney or Lucasfilm was trying to, in the new continuity, I think they were planning on reestablishing what Bothans are, rather than have them be these kind of really weird camel people. I don't know.
Right.
Bothans are weird.
They are.
They were established in the expanded universe as this weird kind of mammalian creature. These furry humanoids. And that's what we used in Imperial Assault. But then eventually, when LFO and the Disney thing happened, they noted, hey, you're not allowed to make Bothans anymore. We're just cut them off. We might do stuff with them. They're deciding what they're going to do. And so we had already made and gotten approved Mach Eshkare, the Bothan hero in Imperial Assault. But that was going to be it. That was it. No more. And we'll see until like whenever the next movie comes out that features Bothans, we'll see what they actually end up looking like. But that sort of stuff was always very exciting. And the mouse, as we affectionately call them, is very good about control. They're very good about controlling their IP and making sure that it is exactly what it needs to be. and also that spoilers don't get released, particularly with J.J. Abrams at the helm. He who actually went to my college, Sarah Lawrence. He went to the same undergrad that I did. But J.J. Abrams is incredibly careful about any kind of spoilers. He has a whole philosophy about it. But that meant that when we got to do Force Awakens stuff, only the developers who were working on Force Awakens got to see anything for it. And they got these very limited things, and any information on Force Awakens, any content that we were developing for it, was kept in a separate room that was cut off from the server, no internet. It was just like, here in this room has this computer, and nothing is allowed, in or out. Like, there's a special lock on it, so no one else could go in. There were a lot of restrictions placed on us to make sure that we, kept things quiet. Like, any leak would basically immediately lose us the license, right? So like, that kind of secrecy was very new to us, but we managed to handle it pretty well, and it was a fascinating experience just because board games are pretty small potatoes to them compared to
right.
like Lego, right?
Yep.
But kind of like seeing what an entity of that scale that operates like that, being even remotely attached to it, was a really fascinating experience.
Yeah, no, it's like you're dealing with like government secrets, and like you just
it was nuts. Some people like you almost felt like a spy, and like you were talking to people working on it, and they'd be like, "Yep, I really can't talk about this." Like they had a meeting with the lawyers, like they were like,
"Wow,
you guys, here's what is at stake. Like, we have the paperwork in place to end your life," type of stuff. Like,
no,
not like that hardcore, but like enough that they were clearly scared when the subject would come up.
Sure.
So move on, but. Yeah, and I mean, even then, though, it was still Star Wars, right? It's still the thing that we love and the thing that we got to play with. And, for me, like, when I went to the first World Championship of Imperial Assault, it was kind of the first time I actually, got to actually hang out with fans playing it. And just hearing over the grapevine, characters, talking about their team lists and talking about, Jyn O'Dan and Gideon Argus, characters that I made up being spoken in the same line as Han goddamn Solo, right? I'm like... what's your list? It's like Gideon, Han, Chewie. I'm like, so good. Oh, so excited.
That's awesome.
It was a dream. It was a dream come
true. Sure. I bet. Speaking of Han, have you seen the new Solo movie?
I have not seen Solo yet. I'm completely out of the loop. I had meant to see it yesterday, but stuff came up, and so now I'm like, oh god. I'm exactly a week behind. I saw Deadpool 2 this weekend instead.
Oh, nice. We watched that the other day. That was
yeah.
Well, not me and my daughter, me and my wife. Well, I wouldn't take my daughter to see it. A little too young for that.
It's a family film, right?
That's what they claim.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Plus, you got this Kickstarter thing going on. You can't. That's sucking up all the free time.
I do miss because I was visiting FFG actually last weekend, visiting Minnesota, and FFG does do a thing where every time a new Star Wars movie comes out, they take a day, and all the employees we all go together, and they go see it as a family. Yeah,
that's awesome.
I was worried that tradition would fall out after the Asmodee merger, but they've kept it going. So I'm super happy for my FFG fam.
Absolutely. They're doing some great stuff over there, and IDW is doing some great stuff. We're loving everything that they're putting out.
It's been super cool working with them. Yeah, that is one thing. FFG has their own way of doing things, and being a salaried employee was one thing, but being able to come out here and then work with other studios has been just super cool. And man, the IDW guys are great guys, and it's been awesome developing this game with them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's probably gonna wrap up our session tonight. Jonathan, where can folks find you online if they'd like to learn more about you or follow you on social media?
Sure. JonathanYing.com is my website, which is just for you to find all the stuff that I've done. My Twitter is @FancyMancer.
Okay.
It was an old Xbox handle that I have yet to change, but FANCYMANCER, FancyMancer, and it's doing all right. I've got some followers who like to listen to me yammer about game design, and I'm having a nice time. Yeah. BargainQuestGame.com is where Bargain Quest is, although it's completely sold out, so don't bother for the moment.
Right now, but
Yeah,
you know,
right
if you're
now.
watching
You can
this,
sign up for updates, actually. So yeah, you can head over there and be notified when the Kickstarter for the expansion hops up.
Awesome.
But yeah, otherwise, I'm kind of nose to the grindstone. This has been a very relaxing break from staring at Adobe InDesign for the last 6 hours.
Oh yeah.
Man.
No, that's
Dev work.
Well, Jonathan, next when you're all set with putting your expansion on Kickstarter, you have to come back on the show, and we'll have to chat all about it. How about that?
That would be awesome. Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. All right, folks, that is going to do it for us tonight. I want to thank everybody that's tuned in live and watched this. If you're watching this and you are a big fan of Jonathan and everything that he does, give it a like down below. Give this video a like down below. Go check out the Kickstarter for Splat Attack. It's got 9 days left, so don't delay. Go right now and click on the link and check it out. There's some great content that needs to be unlocked. We need more Nicktoons added to this game. And Jonathan needs to design some more characters.
Oh man, yeah, like we got a list. We have a list.
I want to see the list. Go unlock it. So yeah, that's it's going to be exciting to see where this all ends up here in 9 days. I'm going to say thanks everybody for watching. This has been Victory Condition Gaming.
Cheers.
See you later, Jonathan. See you later, everybody watching live. And remember, winning shouldn't be the only victory condition when you get to the table. We'll see you next time.